great, you know. And then we have a basic Christian manger. And then today we celebrate Kwanzaa. So when we're open to everything that people are doing spiritually. And we have a few people that are agnostics or atheists or whatever, they're searching, that come. And so it's, and I'm Reverend Doti Boon. I have been doing psychic readings for the last 40 years, but I channel a spirit guide named Ma, who came to me when I was 5 years old. And when Ma came to me, I was living in Lancaster, California, which is on the Mojave Desert, and it was during the Second World War. Tomorrow, I start my 80th year on the planet, so I've been around for a while. And when Ma appeared, there was no kids to play with, there was nothing to do, and this man appeared in my playhouse, and he was all dressed in white, and he said his name was Mahalalel. And I started calling him Ma, and I have ever since, because even at this age, Mahalalel was a little bit different. And I channel him, and in channeling a spirit guide, it's amazing what I keep learning about him. You know, I was doing all of this about all these religions we represent, and about 3 months ago I said, Ma, what religion were you when you were in body? And he said, Hindu. And I thought, of all the religions, that one encompasses everything. And, you know, in India, the Hindus are very open to anybody who comes through their borders. They're very, and I went, no wonder he's so giving and loving and all that. It was just one of those things. But Ma is an incredible being. And for people who say, well, how do you talk to him? I'm going to ask you all to do something. When you hear someone says they channel, how I hear Ma, and now I want everybody, put down your pencil, take just a moment, close your eyes, and very quietly sing to yourself, row, row, row your boat. Okay, just very quietly sing to yourself, not out loud, row, row, row your boat. Okay, where did you hear it? That's where I hear Ma. Okay. What did you feel? Could you feel the boat moving? If you can, you can feel the water, and that, you see, hearing it is clairaudient. Feeling it is clairsentient. And for those of you who could see the boat, that's clairvoyant. And if you can do all of that, you're clairsentient. And so that's when people say, well, where do you hear the voice? That's the voice. Talk to Corky, I don't. And so, and for all of you that channel, realize that who is it that you have to protect the most when you channel? Yourself. Yeah. Make sure that you don't just pick up anybody, because there's some hitchhikers around that aren't necessarily positive. And so if you say, oh, I just heard a voice, you ask it and talk to it and protect yourself. So you are not picking up one of those entities that Corky was talking about that you have to get rid of. And that is very, very important. And here at CCL, somebody will walk in and say, oh, I just had this experience. And we go, okay. And they'll say, you won't believe it. But trust me, we believe anything, because we've heard it all. And it's amazing. As for those of you who work doing readings, it's so interesting. Just when you think, I know it everything, I have heard it all. Somebody comes in with something that is so amazing that you kind of go, wow, that's interesting. And now as ministers, we're also counselors. So when people come in to see any of these people here that have been talking about it, like with Cynthia, she does counseling with her readings, and I'm sure you also do counseling with your readings, because there's that energy that as you're doing a reading, you're hearing what they need. And you're sensing what it is they need. So it's an amazing thing. I started out so many years ago doing this, that somebody said, well, can you watch TV and listen to Ma? I can do anything and listen to Ma. And the way I do that is every morning when I take a shower, for 10 minutes I meditate, and that's when Ma kind of gives me my instructions for the day. And that's how I start out, and he's been doing that for so long. And folks asked me, well, when you saw Ma, what did he look like? I was on the desert. He looked shimmery. But I don't know how many of you have heard of Edwards Air Force Base.
Yes.
But that was our property until the government said it wasn't. And so, and you've seen that flat, alkaline, a Dead Sea virtually. And it shimmers. You can look out there and we'd see Los Angeles upside down. It's shimmery. It's a mirage, and that's what Ma looked like. To me, it was a mirage. And I was so used to seeing mirage, it didn't scare me at all. It was like, okay, somebody came to play with me. So when I came in and said to my grandmother, this man came to talk to me, she said, that's nice, dear. So then my mother said, I understand you have a male friend that came and talked to you. And I said, yes, and I told her about him, and she said, that's nice, dear. and then as I was at Tandem Computers working as a buyer, and this woman came up and she said, I understand that you talked to somebody disembodied. And I said, yeah. And she said, what does he say about me? I said, I don't know. I've never asked anybody about anybody. And she said, well, I'd like to know. So I just told her what Ma said about her. And I went to lunch, and when I came back, there were 7 people standing in the hallway saying, do me, do me. And I said, I really can't. I've got a job in an office, you know. So I thought about it. So I got a little tiny office on Moore Park Avenue. And I started doing readings. And pretty soon, my husband said, why don't you find one job? You're doing 40 hours of reading and 40 hours of working as a buyer. And I said, I think I'll take doing the readings. And Tandem is no longer with us, and I'm still doing readings. So it was one of those things that I had never known that he would tell me about anybody else, you know. Sweet little egotistical thing I was. I had never thought about helping anybody else. And so as I go through, I find that most people have the same questions.
Yes.
You know, they're the same personal questions. It's about love life, it's about a career, it's about money, it's about, you know, will I get married, will I have children? All sorts of wonderful, wonderful things, but they're basically about the same. So when somebody comes in and asks you something so completely different, it's exciting, and Ma gets excited about it. But one quick Ma story, because before we start going here, we had a puja here, and they chant the 1,000 names of God. And the minute this woman started talking, I could see Ma. And when she said, Ganesh, he became at an elephant's head. When she said Krishna, he turned blue. And here he is spinning around in his little white outfit, but it would change every time she'd name a name of God. And he's swirling around, and I just got bored. And I said, Ma, this is boring. He said, wait a minute. I went to Mass with you and listened to some guy that I didn't believe talking a foreign language, because it used to all be in Latin. And he said, you can put up with an hour of me doing my thing. I said, okay, Ma. That's the only time he's ever been like, Dottie, wait just a minute. This is my turn. And so he has a personality, and he died in 1822. So he's, sometimes I'll mention something to him, and he says, I've never heard of that. And I have to say, my spirit guide says he's unheard of. No, he didn't hear about it. He doesn't seem to be interested in it. And people go, oh, okay. You know, and usually it's something very, very modern. Mom just doesn't know anything about it. So before we begin, anybody have any questions that they want to ask about my disembodied spirit guide?
So you're going to talk about predictions first?
Whatever they want. So you have to, yeah, this is your time.
Because I don't want to tape their personal stuff.
Right.
But the two, the ones about the global, would that be okay? Would you, then, okay.
Okay, so we're gonna, and we can just start out and go left all the way or right and around, if that's okay. And are you ready to start doing? Well, before we do it, I'd just like you to take a moment, close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. And release all the negativity of the day. Release anything that's been bothering you. Anything that you absolutely can't do anything about, let it go. as you're sitting in this place, bring in a picture of who you visualize as the divine. Whether it's male or female or spirit or the earth, whatever is your idea of divinity. And just bring that energy in to be here and now. And relax in the love that you feel with this being. And feel its energy all around you. And know that we have purified this room so there's no negativity coming in. There's nothing that's going to follow you home and give you a bad dream. This is a room that's sanctified and spiritual. And it's your turn to find out things that have been questioning you for quite some time. When you get ready, just open your eyes and come back to the room.
Okay.
Mark,
I want to be sure we get...
You have a global question you would like to ask?
No.
Okay.
That was quick.
You know, I've said this before about you, but you're easy, Mark. Okay, Linda, do you have?
How can we stop global warming?
You personally is start looking for people that you believe in to vote for. Because we have 33 new Senate seats coming up and over 400 House of Representatives. And that's in 2018 for the 2019. So if for any of you, when you say, I don't know what to do, we don't discuss politics here. That's against our nonprofit status to discuss party politics. But for that particular question, how many of you here have worked on an election?
Phone bank coordinator, phone
Yeah.
banking, sisters, just.
Being a voter person?
Yeah, you're doing the border, yeah.
But with voting as it is today, being shipped offshore and such, do our votes really count?
They do if it's an overwhelming thing. Even last election, many people were feeling very strongly about the voter outcome was about 50%. So what you need to do is, I've picketed, and because I was a union delegate, and I've done a lot of stuff and made a difference and seen the difference. So the only thing we can do about global warming is get the peoples of the world interested in enough, but start at home. If you don't know who your assemblyman is, find out and see how he or she works on or feels on this. And call them and write letters and email. It's so much easier nowadays. And that's how we can do it.
Okay.
And you can do all the things that you know about to help as far as buying, non-lead, lead-free gasoline. I mean, just on and on and on. There are things we know about intrinsically, and stop using plastic and all of that. And that's what you can do individually, but you also have to get more people involved.
Okay.
One of the things, and you all know this, I'm sure, and Martin Luther King's birthday is coming up in a little bit, but he did very nonviolent types of demonstration. And he changed the country.
Yeah.
And he, with all the followers. And that's what happened. And he was a magnificent speaker, and he had a magnificent agenda. So just start. Okay, next.
Well, I just recently learned how the U.S. government orchestrates war for their specific purposes, and it seems like that's what's happening with North Korea now.
Mhm.
So I'd like to know, is there going to be war with North
Ma
Korea?
says no.
Will
Yeah.
nuclear weapons be used?
No. Ma says they are going to, their weapons are not going to be as effective as they keep bragging about. And I don't know how many of you know this, but we have something that's called the cosmic cops. And these are, when you hear about, we have spirit brothers from other planetary systems. If we have nuclear war, this planet is going to start imploding. And it's like a pinball on a machine or a pool ball. It'll start knocking off other planetary systems. And that's why we had when we dropped the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, what happened? It stopped. And it wasn't about we're going to be the good guys as much as it was. There was a lot of energy from outside the planet that came in. And we're going to find the same thing as far as North Korea. And what Ma says is, no, we're not going to go to war. And so every time you say to yourself, oh, I'm real worried about war, that puts into the consciousness the worry about war, and it starts manifesting it. So every time you hear anything or you feel anything, you say, no war, no worry, and just let it go.
That's a good mantra.
Yeah.
No war, no worry.
No war, no worry. Yeah. Okay, Cynthia.
Nothing yet.
Okay, Kathleen.
This is like a world or a global issue.
Yes.
Well, somebody already brought up global warming or climate change. Is there anything in particular that we can expect, or is it pretty much all, as was already talked about, if we manifest the types of leaders?
Well, but what's happening, Mother Earth is alive, and she's going through a lot of stuff, okay? There's so many things that have been happening to her, and a lot of this is retaliatory. And so if we calm down and stop drilling holes in her and doing a lot of things, she's going to calm down. So we don't have a machine that's going to stop global warming. But we do have enough people and enough energy, and we know energy is things. So if we can change our energy from fear-based, angry, and constantly complaining and start blessing the planet, you're going to find there's going to be a difference. Yes, Corky?
So, can we, here at the center, for instance, have like a daily meditation or a weekly positive thinking moment or
Recentering.
Yeah, but you can do it yourself.
okay?
I mean, every day do a prayer and a blessing and bless Mother Earth.
But
And bless your bless your enemies, whoever you think are your enemies. Bless them. Don't get angry with them. Bless them. They're not going to get better if you keep yelling and screaming at them.
Oh, and remember to tell them about what Ma said about people on the other side and how we have to bless them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right now.
No.
Okay.
No, you just asked me to remind you, and I just remembered. And
Yeah. That was very interesting.
so everybody remember to have Dottie tell us.
Kathleen, you said you're going to pass right now on this one.
So, well, I was just asking, what can we expect as far as the world do? Are we doing all three of our questions right now?
No, just
or
one.
is it just
Not global. Okay, Chris.
Yeah. My question has to do with the distribution of refugees
Yeah.
and the balance between pulling them into a safe haven and populating their domain.
You have to be a little bit more specific. I don't understand it, and Ma's not giving me anything right now. Populate their domain, you mean?
I mean that if everybody who has a brain leaves Syria, then there's no one to rebuild Syria, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at a lot of effort and tendency to bring people out of any number of horrible places, challenging places. And at the same time, I'm conscious that there's other thought about how to...
Virtually reseed the country.
Do you say reseed?
Reseed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because Syria is an amazing country, and it's just under a horrible time. And what my guide says is that there are so many people who that is their home, and they've left, but eventually they're going to go back. So it's not like they're leaving and they'll never return. But we see a lot of the engineers, the scientists, and all that are going to, after things calm down. And Ma says it's not going to happen very fast. He says it looks like it's about 5 years. But
Well, 5 years is fine. I was thinking about the exodus out of Israel and the return, which they're not all that welcoming
Mhm.
to come back and reclaim what they thought was theirs. And 5 years and 2,000 years is really different.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
Syria
yes,
is
it
a little bit different because it's so chaotic. Israel is chaotic, but in a whole different point of view. According to Ma, that with the Israeli and the Palestinians and all the things that have been going on. Now, this is a whole different thing. He says that land is bad, meaning so many fighting and so much anger has been on that premises that before they can have peace, it's virtually they're going to have to reclaim the land and sift it. I mean, he says there's so much anger in that land that you could be a peacemaker and step off the plane and walk on the land and get angry. And there's a few places like that in the world that the anger is so strong. So, and here we have these two beautiful religions with the Islam and the Jewish, but there's so much anger there. But it goes all the way back to Masada. I mean, it goes way back. And so, and there's other places around the world that Ma says they need to be blessed and they need to be made holy again before they can calm down.
So lying fallow is a principle.
Yeah, yeah. So when people leave, if the land can just take a breath and then go back, and however that can be accomplished, it's going to mean that then peace will come in. Peace is a very difficult thing to sell. Very, very difficult. And Ma says that peace has to be in the heart. And so whatever they can do if you're in a country where the land talks to you, where Mother Nature is so angry, Mother Earth is so angry that you can't find a place to be blessed, that's difficult. And Syria doesn't have the same problem. Yeah. All of this is fairly, well, Syria's gone through a lot, but this whole dynamic now is very new as far as the country, as far as the world is concerned. Okay. Does that help?
Mhm.
Okay. Leslie.
No, no.
Okay, Mary.
Are we going to have a major event that will stop the world as we know it this year?
There's going to be a lot of, Ma says the president of Mexico is going to be overthrown. And it looks like the present president, it's a hard subject. The present president is going to be having problems. Ma said when he got elected that before 2020 he was either going to be shot or somebody was going to assassinate him, or he was going to die, or he's going to be impeached. And so I don't know when that's going to happen or what's happening, but it's already boiling. So there's something, and that seems to, it's almost like it wakes up the country, and they go, oh no. You know, Kennedy's assassination woke up a lot of people who we always thought that couldn't happen here. So and think of the fact that there are more people talking about politics now than have been talking in the last 20 years. So something good is going to come out of this. Okay? Yeah, Patricia.
Oh, yes. When it comes to like the world, sometimes brilliant ideas all come up at one
Of
time.
course.
And they just sprout.
Right.
Boom. Simultaneously, you have people that have the same ideas.
That's 100 monkey theory.
Right.
Yeah.
And they may not even know each
Right,
other.
exactly.
So this is about ideals that I wanted to ask about. My husband wrote programs to help higher level mathematics, which I see is a common language among all languages. Mathematics is a common language. And in order to share that...
Wait just a minute. Corky, can I have some water, please?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In order to share that, I feel like he's got something really, really great. But maybe there's other people coming out with similar ideas on this. Is this the time for some of these upper level mathematics to be shared on a worldwide basis? And is what my husband doing of real value? I mean, I may be,
Well, but
fluffing
it
it
needs
up.
to be sold. It's not just gonna manifest. Ma says it's not just gonna manifest magically. It needs to be sold, and so it needs to have people who are interested enough to put it out there, so other people can learn it and understand it.
It does have to be learned.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's not just gonna drop in and they're gonna get it. It has to be taught. And so, but that whole idea is that mathematics, ever since we talked about Einstein and all the other people, mathematics is there. All we have to do is grab it. Okay, so it's one of those things that once we do, then it'll really start. And with the computers we have now, it's going to be a lot easier to grab it than it has ever been. So what your husband is doing, he's one of those stepping stones. And so, and honor the work that he's done, and just keep praising him. Okay.
Thank you.
Laura.
The many kinds of problems that women have had around the globe are starting to come to a head now. The women are being believed.
Right.
Will that trend continue?
Yes, but it's going to have to swing further. It's going to get, so it's going to feel like everybody's been abused, everybody's been molested, everybody, and because what's happening is so many women have been quiet for so long because they were afraid of the retaliation. And what Ma says is that this is not just in the United States, it's all over the world. And they're getting a voice, and when they get a voice, women are powerful when they have a voice, but there's also going to be people that say, well, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, and they're not going to be believed. Something about the credibility. Maybe somebody will say, oh yeah, but she was an addict or she was an alcoholic, as if that's a reason to not believe somebody, and that disbelief is going to rise up. And women are going to start saying, wait a minute, we need to be believed, and they're going to do it worldwide. So but before men were in charge, now women are getting more in charge, and so it's going to get kind of, if you're not a woman, you're not going to get any raises, that type of thing. It's going to have to swing that far, and then it'll come back to center. So we're going to see revolutionary as far as women being more generals and more in charge of corporations and all these things that they haven't been, because it's got to swing that far. So yes, it's not going to happen in our lifetime, ladies, but we're going to see it. We're going to see it beginning, and that's going to be exciting to see it being.
And Women's March is January 20th.
Yeah, and marches, any type of thing where you show up, the energy, how many in here have ever been in a march? The energy you get from it is incredible. You just feel validated when you're out there with people that are standing up for the same thing. Yeah. Thank you, good question. Thank you, Tamara.
Will USA break apart over the next 25 years?
The land or base or what?
Politically.
Well, I don't know what break apart means. Maud has no idea what you mean. He sees breaking like that, and he says, but what part are you talking about breaking?
Like Texas is talking about receding, having their own governorship. Hawaii is talking about having its own governmentship.
Ma says this is more talking than doing.
Okay.
Yeah, he says no. It's not like the Conch Republic. How many of you know about the Conch Republic? In Key West, they seceded from they just seceded from the United States, and they had their own republic for about 3 weeks. And it was
Key West.
Key West, and it's called Conch is C-O-N-C-H. And read about the Conch Republic. I mean, it was just amazing what they did, because you couldn't get to them because they're down in Key West, Florida, and nobody could get to them. And they just had this is ours, and you're not coming in. The government can't come in here, and they did. But they found that a lot of the services that they hadn't realized that the government was doing, they got kicked out of. And so they paid them off virtually. They held Key West hostage, and the movie you've probably seen was called "The Russians Are Coming." The Russians Are Coming was based on the Conch Republic, and so it's a very interesting thing. And we've had so many other states have said that. Texas is huge, and it has a lot of resources. California has been saying, we don't want to be a part of this. And we've got a lot of resources here. But what Ma says is that the political thing is going to start shifting. And we're not going to have as much gerrymandering as far as votes and things like that. So we've got some changes coming up. And I can't stress too much, work for it, not arguing against it. Work for what you want, instead of arguing that that's not gonna work. The positive always wins, but you gotta get behind what you believe in, you know, and that's how to work it. Okay, yes.
Is JFK a global?
Okay, Moss is the person who shot JFK is now dead, and his home base was Cuba.
Raphael?
Ted Cruz's
no,
dad.
So it was
Yeah, and it was male, not female.
Castro?
I don't know, I'm giving you all he's giving me. And it's, she's been asking this question for 30 years. Who shot JFK? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the food, the genetically modified food, the food going to hell in a handbag right now, is that going to stop, and are we gonna take it the other way before it's too late?
That's such a great question, Mary, because what Moss says, and this is very interesting, he said, the food that's been genetically modified, it's so difficult on our systems, it's so bad. And yet, we have kids that are thriving on it.
We have kids that are dying on it.
Yes, but we have more kids that are thriving. So what's going on? It's like our bodies are adapting. And we never thought that would happen. And Ma says, start looking at what's going on with some of the foods that our kids are adapting to. Raising, I now have a great-grandchild who's 3 months old. And the way you raise a baby now is so different than how I raised a baby. You don't swaddle them, you don't cover them up, you don't put t-shirts on, you don't keep them real warm. And it's so different than I raise children, that children raise, because they build up their immunity. And so I wish that the modified food would go away, but so many of the people who can change the laws are taking money to not change the laws. And
So
there
are the
again,
babies adapting?
what?
Are the babies adapting to
Yeah.
this? Are they gonna survive or cause cancer in the future and that sort of thing?
Well, we have cancer. Okay.
But more?
How many of you have not been touched by cancer in your life? Okay, you don't know, have anybody in your family who's ever had cancer?
A lot.
Yeah, everybody has. We've got cancer out there. And so what Ma says is that we're looking at look at the new kids that are coming in, find out what they're thinking and what they're doing. That's what's going to save our planet. And we have all these ideas of what isn't going to work. Find something that will work. And Ma says, find something that you feel is positive and work on it. You know, we're still caught up in that, well, they can't do that. But it's happening.
But how do we teach them? They have no
Wait a minute,
social...
I'm gonna ask you, did you get a,
No, this was in addition to this.
wait a minute, Deanna, did you get a sheet?
I just now got it. She's
Yeah,
getting it
and
then.
and you need to write down what your global question is, and I'll get to you, okay?
Thank you.
So, anyway, what I'm saying is, every time you say, oh, that's awful, it becomes worse.
You can keep it.
So you say, but that's horrible, it becomes worse. Say, find the good that's there, and say, the things that aren't being modified genetically, or it could be orange carrots, I don't care what it is, and start looking at finding a way to get everybody to benefit what's not being. And here in California, we've got a lot of stuff that isn't. And we're not like some of the states where everything's been genetically modified. There are states that are growing wheat, I mean, that type of thing, you know. But here we've got some real good values. So keep pushing those real good values. And because as you do that, you'll find things start changing in a positive way. Okay?
Like buying organic.
We're buying organic. Look at, not only do we have Sprouts and we have Whole Foods, but
Grocery
we have
outlets.
Food of Life. What did you say?
Grocery outlet has a lot of organic.
Yeah, well, Smart and Final does too.
Farmers markets and community-supported agriculture.
Yeah,
It's
and
actually
so-
a very economical way
So
of
that's the
buying.
way we change it. If the genetically modified food's not selling, they're gonna stop. But we have to get behind what works, not what doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, Deanna, you wanted to say something?
The young people have no social skills, they're just all bet.
Now you're doing then what's wrong with them?
I know, but how do we teach them not to, I mean, they prefer across the table to do
Right,
this instead
I
of to
preferred
talk.
being on
How
the
do we
phone. When
teach
I
them
was a
this?
teenager, I preferred being on the phone than listening to my parents. I was on the phone every time I could be.
But phone is at least social skills, this is,
No, a lot of what they're doing is talking. A lot of their skills are being improved because they are communicating more. So look at the positive. And they're finding that the communication they're doing and the interacting they're doing is more positive than the X generation. Okay? So every time you come up with something, oh, but they can't or they shouldn't, stop and
no, I
say,
didn't say they can't, I said, how do we teach them?
yeah, but they're doing pretty well on their own.
Not socially.
How many,
Not socially, they
That's
don't know how to
right.
talk to each other.
right? And
How do we teach them?
Right back to them.
yeah, communicate
Model
with
it,
them.
yeah, talk to them the way you think that they should
They are
be.
communicating, exactly. You know, yes, Chris.
It's a follow-on to this, because I teach academic to middle
Right.
and high school, and there's two things that I've noticed that are disturbing to me. One is they can't write cursive and they can't read my cursive.
And
I
why do
find
they
that-
have to?
Because that's how I present information.
Why do they have to read cursive?
Mexico doesn't even teach it. They
Well, I
haven't
don't
for
know that
years.
they, anyway, that's one. The second one is they don't know anything about history. And where what I teach is deeply ensconced in history, they have no references. And I've looked at the syllabus for the state, and they don't teach, like, as an example, they don't teach Holocaust. They don't even teach World War II until 10th grade. And it's really hard for me to work with material for 6th grade that talks about people with numbers on their arm, as an example, when they're not going to get this until 10th. And that's something that I'm finding receding. And I don't know if they're still doing 2nd grade missions, but I grieve the draining away of the historical aspect of the intellectual capital. And they have a lot of technology skills, and the 4-year-olds can run rings around the phone. I don't care. It keeps them busy, I guess. But the 4-year-old, the 14-year-old, and even the 24-year-old hasn't any idea. You know, I could name
But
anything.
start looking at, why do they have to?
Because if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, but then we say that all the time, and we have known history, and we have repeated it.
I don't think that's universally true, and I think people have a choice.
I really, what country hasn't repeated something?
I'm not
Yeah,
saying
what
no one.
Ma's saying is that there
saying
are
we
so
have
many
choices.
things that have been repeated, and we knew the history. And, but see, we're going back to find out what you can find that is positive, because the best way to train anybody is to work with the
I
positive.
deliver the information that I think that they need in order to be a good analyst, but it's just grief for me when I walk into a situation like that.
It's horrifying. And what I do is I teach culture, but you have to connect it to something. So if you can connect it to
Yeah,
something.
but what I'm trying to get through to you, and
No, I
it's not
understand it.
working.
It's
Because
working, but
Ma says
it's
if we
too
don't,
real,
if we don't love each other, and if we don't accept each other, and if we don't talk to each other, that's where we're gonna fail, as, you know, in so much. And the talking on the phone, you know, I don't do that, I still do that, but, you know, my grandkids do. They're communicating a lot more than I did growing up.
I just give you one example. We were reading about frogs, and it's called a Goliath frog. Now, most people know why it might be called a Goliath frog. It probably has something to do with size and energy. No concept. Who David? David who? David and Goliath? And so this is just where I think that I'm just I'm just sad that the references, as an archivist, the references that we've had forever seem to be slipping away with the same speed that the technology is encroaching. And it's
I
just-
don't share this view with you at all, but that's okay.
Okay, that's just.
I
yeah.
do, because I teach it every day.
Good, because the whole idea of history, I've met so many marvelous people that history wasn't that big a thing, and they were doing fantastically well. And quoting the Bible and the Bible stories, there are so many people who that's not their reference, and they do fine. If you learn about a Goliath frog, you don't have to know where the name came from for you to be relevant.
Yeah, we disagree.
Yeah, we disagree.
I think it's
Yeah.
shorthand, calling it a Goliath frog is shorthand
From
for
living,
conveying.
working in a high school, where, they're shifting from using the books to more of the online resources. They're still using a database that I have Gale, and it has it pretty well. But I know that the teachers out there are using, like, say, Digo, and then, like, they're like clustering things in online ways and kind of getting out, sort of future ways of looking at things more quickly. And then, the students, they're stratifying them more. So there's a lot more AP classes, and then so those kids, are doing well in their history. They're taking AP European history.
Which
I wish
AP?
they would actually teach an
Advanced
AP
placement
world
for
history,
university.
because the European seems to be like a little slanted on one side, but they're
Yeah,
taking
okay,
those
now I'll
classes.
tell you, in all of this
other
communication, we can go on and on and on. Ma says, I would rather see you worrying about what the kids get to eat than how much history they know. He says, we have kids starving constantly. They're not starving from not knowing history, they're starving for not having food. And he says, we can talk this over, what books they should read and all that, and he said, they can't focus if their bellies are empty. And that's what we should be looking into, is how to feed the world's children, not what they have to learn.
Well, we gotta
Let's
start
get
in this
the-
country first.
What?
We have to start feeding the kids in this country first.
I agree, yeah. But that's what he sees this as the whole world. And it's like, Mom keeps saying, talk about the positive, talk about how to feed the kids, talk about how to talk to them so they feel wanted and appreciated, instead of beating them and abusing them and molesting them. Let's start treating the kids like these beautiful little children of God they are. Okay, the next one is the personal ones.
The
No,
local
it
one?
isn't. It's the what's the question you
Local.
always wanted to ask?
Local or
Yeah,
national or?
anything, yeah, yeah, okay, so, we'll start. Mark, do you have anything you've always wanted to ask?
Not this time.
Nothing you've always wanted to ask, Dottie?
Not this time.
I'm taken, sorry about that, honey. Okay, Linda.
Will the Democrats take over in 2018, 2020?
They're not gonna completely take over, because we see it as that everybody should vote Democrat. And that's because we live here. There's other parts of the country. And one of the things Ma says, and I think it's very interesting, he said that, even though we're not supposed to be talking politics, we're not in church. But anyway, what he says is that there was a brain trust that said, if you want to get a lot of votes, aim for the uneducated white male. If you get the uneducated white male, his wife will follow. So it's 2 for 1, and that's the way to get all the votes. And that's what happened. And that's that energy that we are dealing with. And for us here in California, we go, well, that's stupid. Why would you aim for that group? Because that's where the votes were. Okay. And so now what we saw, where in it was Alabama, Roy Moore was out in Alabama, where 98% of the black women voted. First time in the history of the United States, mainly because a lot of the black women couldn't even vote in the 60s and the 70s. And so now we have, this is what's going to change it, is that the minorities are going, wait a minute, we're not going to put up with this, and it's going to start switching. So he says that that's what's going to be happening. So it's a positive thing is coming up. As I said, women are going to start doing that. They're going to realize it's the ballot. Okay, Madeira.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a woman in Houston, Texas named Elise Medhus, and she runs a blog called Channeling Eric, where her son, who's crossed over, communicates. And it's very positive. It's been very successful for about over 10 years now. And she's written some books that were channeled, her son channeling.
Right.
And the channels were Jamie Butler, and then there was another one, Kim Babcock. They cut loose, and they don't do it anymore. They won't channel Eric anymore, and they're not associated with her anymore. And just before Christmas, she put out an email that said she's not going to do the blog anymore because she's very sad and she feels betrayed. And this just broke my heart, and I don't know what's going on.
I'm not getting, what Ma says is that Eric is not channeling as much because he's getting ready to come back. So probably she's sad because she's not hearing as much from him. And what happens is Ma says, when we get ready to come back into form, okay, that we start calming down. If we've been doing a lot of channeling or whatever, we start building up our own energy, because as a spiritual being, you flow with this energy, and you stop sending out as much, and you hold on to that energy because you're going to be coming in. And so that's probably what happened. And so the people say, well, he's not doing this, he's not doing that, I'm not hearing from him. What you're saying doesn't make much sense. One of the things that, as a channel, one of the things that happens is quite often people will say, well, I want to know what's going on here, and your channeling isn't working. You have an off day. And so many people make up something because it's not coming in. And so they say, well, Eric would say such and such, and I'm not saying she does this, but I've seen people do this, but they're really not getting it because whoever they're channeling is starting to shift and starting to come in. And I guess that's what's happening. I think that there's been a lack of energy coming in from Eric. And I think that's what's been going on. Because Ma says that he's getting ready to transfer.
And the mother may not know that.
Yeah, the mother may not
So
know that.
she's feeling
Well, they've talked about
that
it a
human-
lot, and he said no, that he's not, and that he won't for quite some time. He's waiting for her to cross over.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, it's kind of like waiting for a train. You don't step up and the train's here. You do that waiting, but you get ready for the train.
Yeah, the inference was that she felt betrayed by these particular mediums who, something went on. There was gossip and people said things behind people's back, and I was just like, what? The whole thing was shocking to me, and I couldn't figure out, what?
It
These are
happens to
really
everybody.
spiritual.
Sylvia Brown went through the same thing. All these people, it's almost like when you get more known, that more negativity starts coming your way. I don't know whether it's jealousy, I don't know what it is, but that's what happens. Yeah, so.
Well, you have people that go, that's nothing. So you get a lot of that negative
Yeah.
energy kind of directed at you, and it's bound to, kind of change your. I mean, you can only protect yourself. Well, I mean, you can protect yourself thoroughly, but there's people around you start to change.
And just send her a lot. Send her a lot of light.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's what she needs. Yeah, because this is a rough time for her.
Yeah.
Especially since, as Ma says, his energy is not as strong.
So you get to help her, like
Yeah, you
yourself
can
too.
help her.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Cynthia.
Not right now.
Okay, Kathleen.
Ancient civilizations, like the dawn of human civilization, was it influenced by extraterrestrial
Yes.
beings?
Ma says yes, and he said, but, I love this, he says, yes, it was, but don't dwell on it, because it's not something that, what the ETs have, where they've come here and done things, and civilizations have grown up around it, their clock is so much longer than ours. They're not coming back real soon, it's kind of like the universe is so, Ma refers to it as a multiverse. He says there's not just one universe. And so when you think of how long it takes to get from here to the end of our universe, and there's another one, and their ETs are different from different places and everything else. And they were here and helped, Ma says they were here and helped with the pyramids. They were here and helped, and worked with the planets, that there have been beings, that these are rumors, but Ma says they are going to find they can be substantiated. Okay. And have any of you seen an ET?
Yeah,
Yeah.
heck yeah.
And because there's a different energy. And when you do, you know that's a different energy. It doesn't feel like my neighbor. It feels like some other energy. And you use that energy and you go, oh wow, that's interesting. They're not bad, they're not, they're not superior, they're just interesting.
Yeah, for the people in the room who've seen an ET, like, was their form human? Or was their form?
I just saw the thing, the
saw
craft
a
above
UFO,
head, yeah.
I've seen
Very real.
Grace.
There was,
But no, wait just a minute.
She asked,
Yeah,
I was gonna
yeah,
ask.
yeah. You want to talk about an ET?
I was just gonna tell her, there was a lady on the same radio show as you were. She came up from LA, and she never connected here, so she stayed down in LA when I was living in Long Beach. And she was a walk-in extraterrestrial who took over a Canadian, somebody who worked in the advanced military, but she was in a car accident. The body was really harmed. She was already channeling two major entities, and then she asked to be released, and her name was Shari, S-H-A-R-I. Shari walked in and took over. So at nighttime she'd go, she was a captain of a ship, and she'd go on board. And in the daytime she did the military job. And I followed her for years until I moved up here. In fact, I took my last class, I flew down when I didn't even have a job to finish a class with her. And so,
Ma says walk-ins are so seldom that he doesn't even follow really walking energy.
but
Yeah.
she talked about, remember Chernobyl? She explained how the ETs were pulling that negative energy out from the North Pole to protect Earth. That's why more Europeans didn't die. It was fascinating, but see, this is 25 years ago or more.
Right, yeah. Well, thank you.
And
Yeah.
then Corky, what did you say?
Oh, I've seen Grace.
Great.
In the little, the ones that you usually see the picture of,
Oh,
the little
okay.
gray ones with the, and
Where did
according
you see
to the information I've gotten from when we were at one of the Mayan temples, was that the Greys were like the taxi cab drivers of the ETs, and so you would see them more because they were everywhere, because they were transporting all the other beings.
Where did you see?
In the
an
Yucatan.
example?
Well, in her backyard, Scotty's backyard.
I think I got a portal or something.
2, 3, 4, 10, 12, how many did you see?
Yeah, Chris, do you have a
Probably
question?
Not all at once.
I'm sorry, did I ask you the mouthful? I'm sorry.
Yes. Is this the one I've always wanted answered?
Yeah.
I have a question about population, the Earth population. Yeah. Just in the next, I don't know, however long, but what's gonna happen population-wise?
Ma says more and more people are gonna either not have children or not be able to conceive. And so it's not going to be as
So
rampant.
the growth rate will decrease.
Yeah, it's just gonna really start slowing down. And so we still have a few more, but one of the things that's a problem with the population is everybody is living so long. It's not unusual for somebody to live to be 100. And Ma says that he has no idea why people choose to live that long. He says, one of the things Ma says about dying, he says, if you really want to die, you can do it in 3 days. He says, you can shut down your body in 3 days if you really want to leave the planet. And he said, and people have this option, and they don't take it because of their ego. Because our ego is saying, we have to stay here.
And the people that want them to stay. Yes.
Yeah, and hold on to them.
The selfishness
Yeah.
of the people, yes.
Yeah.
My dad tried to leave for 2 weeks.
Right?
We tried really hard to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, And so it's one of those things that you just have to focus and say, I'm out of here. And he says you can do it in 3 days. I had, you know, and I know about 3 people that have done it in 3 days, and that it's very interesting. So, and start looking around there again with the kids. There are a lot of people who don't want children, a lot more than, and for when I was growing up, you got married, you had at least 2 kids, and if you didn't, the family just made you wrong. And now there's people who have decided, I'm not going to do that, I don't want to have children. Yeah. Okay, Leslie, what question? And so, anyway, the population is not going to be as runaway, Ma says, as it has been. Okay.
Are we
And
gonna have like a disease that,
we're due for another influenza attack.
Mm.
And so what Ma says is there again, keep yourself as healthy as you can and try and be around healthy people, because 1918, and it seems that it comes in waves. And so we've had a couple that were minor, but he says, yeah, you've got to keep yourself healthy.
Can I ask a philosophical follow-on?
Yep.
Separating from the individual, is that a problem if a lot of people die?
No.
Okay.
You mean, because, you mean to go into spirit?
Well, I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking of, I know that one person doesn't want another person to leave. I get that. But if you don't look at that part of it, and you sort of cull the numbers, is that an issue? Is that a moral issue?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
See, we're not here for very long. And we get all caught up in, oh, but I don't want to die. I don't want to let go. And Ma says, you're going to come back. You know? It's like missing a boat. Another one's coming by. And you get so caught up in, oh my God, I can't let go, I can't let go. He says, let go and come back and do it again. And stop worrying about how long you're going to be here. He says, we have people in nursing homes who can hardly breathe, they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't eat, and they have to have somebody change their diapers. And they could come back and be a 3-year-old now, bopping along and having a great life. Yeah. And so it's that acceptance of our lifespan, but of our divinity of being able to come back. Yeah. Okay, Leslie, do you have a question that you?
No, I think I'll pass.
Okay, Mary. I've called everybody with their mouth full. I'm sorry.
Well,
Good food.
String theory, multiverse theories about that we are living on different dimensions at the same time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that's all fine and well, but why is my consciousness just associated with one? I mean, is my consciousness there? Would that be me if it were?
Wow.
If I'm living there, you know
I love
what?
it. I love it.
If I'm living there, why am I not conscious of the me there? And if so, then does it count?
Good question.
Yeah, but what Ma says is that when we talk about living on different platforms, as it were, and he says that you are even within your own body. And he says your eyes are doing something different than your stomach. Your stomach is doing something different than your feet, but they're all part of the same body. Do you understand the analogy? And he says, and that's the way it is with spiritually. You're in this body, but you're in another body. You're living simultaneously in different places. Your eyes don't care what's happening to your stomach. Your stomach doesn't care what's happening to your feet. But they're simultaneously in the same being. And so your divinity is in different places at the same time. And every once in a while, you might have a dream, you might have a feeling, you might sense something where there's a little bit of feedback, where all of a sudden you go, I remember being an opera singer. I haven't been an opera singer. And it might not just be a past life, it might be a present life on another space or another time. And so once you get in connection with, read the book, The Education of Oversoul 7 by Jane Roberts. That's an incredible book. And she talks about simultaneously living at the same time. So you could be a 10-year-old boy in London, you could be a 50-year-old woman in New Jersey, you could be somebody living in 2075, but all at the same time.
But could that be me making different choices and be the same me I am here?
You're not the same me, no.
Okay.
No, you're making different choices for different outcomes at the same time. Okay. Yeah, Patricia.
Oh, I'd like to ask about free energy. I mean, free or low-cost energy, I know that we have it. Will we ever see that in any future generation or any possibility in our life? Is it going to happen? Will we be able to?
Not in our life, but it's already happening. It's moving. I own windmills. Isn't that fun? I have 10 acres in Southern California that my dad, I inherited from my father. And I got a call from Obla, and they said, would you like to have a windmill on your land? We may be able to put 2, but right now we know for sure 1. And we'll pay you $500 a year to lease the land. I said, of course. This land is so poor, as far as land goes in Kern County, that my taxes are $22 a year. For 10 acres. I mean, and I said, is there anything there? And he said, yep, jackrabbits, and there's these little squirrels. Don't worry about it, you know.
Yeah, but they can harness energy.
Yeah, and so we've got the turbines, and every time I get a letter from the people, they have increased the amount of turbines.
Excellent.
Well, ask them if they can direct some your way.
So I know it's happening because I've seen it. But this whole thing of using coal, Ma says, pretty soon somebody's going to say no more. And he said they've said no more, and they keep repealing it. But Ma says it's going to happen, and there's going to might be in some of your lifetimes that they're going to say no more. But
I've heard that solar is almost cheaper than coal.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, we're moving forward. We don't see it unless when you go across over the pass and you see all of the wonderful turbines. But we don't see it. Solar isn't as easy to see. You know, like look at the sun, but you know what I mean. But Ma says it's happening. So keep telling everybody, hey, put solar on your house if you can.
Well, he doesn't have those great farms of just solar panels.
Yeah, and just keep encouraging people to do this and do it yourself.
Is there going to be a David to the Goliath, the PG&E Goliath?
PG&E's having major problems from the fires. PG&E is going to be in court a lot, and they're not going to necessarily win. And Ma says that's going to be what happens, is that the people are saying, we're going to start blaming this. It wasn't just an act of God. So that's coming up.
I want to go back to, I have a question.
Okay.
Are we gonna have universal health care?
Oh, yes.
Universal meaning worldwide?
Healthcare.
No.
Well, no, I mean, are we gonna get single payer or something close to that? Are people going to be insured
In the US.
in the US?
Not every state. Ma says that it's going to be almost impossible to get every state approving it. And there again, that's both for the politician that's for it. Because the way it stands right now, it's not going to happen. Okay.
Why? Wow.
I know. Insurance companies?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're used to
They are the Goliath.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, big frogs.
Yeah, they are. They're used to their huge amount of money.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Following on with the technology question, or the energy question, there are a lot of technologies that are suppressed now. Will we see a release of those anytime soon?
Well, this suppression of technology, Mom's really excited about this. He says, we were suppressed on so many things, but now with the internet highway, it's hard to keep things suppressed. And he says, because all that we take is one person says, hey, I've got this, and it goes viral. So what was going on before is going to be changing because of the the internet. More and more things are going to be coming out. And he says that it used to be that any big corporation could suppress anything.
Yes.
And he said it's not happening like that. And
But
where
they still are though, a lot.
What?
They still are a lot.
Yeah, but it's not as many because they haven't been able to get the hold that they did before because more people are finding out what's going on.
And they tell people, that's good.
And they tell people. And well, they have the way to tell people. Watch something go viral. It's incredible what happens. Yeah. Good. Okay, tomorrow.
No.
Okay. Oh, now this is when we shut off the
Right.
video.
Now you can do your private.
Now we can do private.
Private things.
And the reason I have you do it this way